Greetings, everybody. We've gathered around the table again today, and this week it's just the three of us. We weren't able to get Morgan as the fourth fill-in.
I think he was deported as well.
Yep.
I think between him and Paul, they just keep picking people off. I think next week it's just going to be me and Nigel just sitting across the table from each other, just really lonely.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Joe.
Hey, this is why I have bug out bags ready.
Indeed. Just a real random note. If you guys hear any weird rumblings going on with the audio, there might be a bit of a thunderstorm tonight. There might be tornadoes touching down in the province, so hopefully we don't get blown away.
Yeah. Tornadoes. They're not just for Kansas anymore.
Anymore.
Good old Alberta. Yeah, we get a bunch of them. So.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yep. So yeah, let's go with pocket dumps.
I went first last time.
Okay, fine,
I
Joe.
know. I knew you were going to point at me this week.
Oh boy. With all the rain and everything else, I've gone back to the 620 from ZT.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 390. Don't rust. Not easily.
Yeah.
M390. Don't rust.
Yeah.
Word.
Yeah.
And I am carrying the massive pocket filling Spyderco Toad.
Because VG10 don't rust either.
No,
This is true.
I'd say don't rust more.
Yeah. Not as much as some of Spyderco's rust-free options, but
It's no LC, but yeah.
yeah.
And
Still
last but
pretty
not
good.
least, I've got the Benchmade Ballet because M390 don't rust. That's actually not why I had it at all.
No kidding.
Anyway, Sunday, day off, light carry. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
So this week we are having a look at a little offering from a Bulgarian company called Manly Knives. And we are looking at the Wasp.
Ta-da!
Yep, it's a nice little slip joint. This version is S90V for the steel and G10 for the handles.
Sure, close up of that bad boy. It's worth it.
Mhm.
I will say, recently purchased by me. I've been so intrigued by this knife. Everything I've seen online, I needed to go out and seek one out on my own, and I'm super happy we did. Hopefully, we might see some more stuff by Manly Knives because it's super cool.
They've been pretty universally liked on blade forums and other places online, and I think for good reason.
Mhm.
Yeah, and not a typo, Bulgaria. That is correct. They're
Yep.
coming from Bulgaria, which is really obscure even for our knife community, what we know in presence. It's awesome that these small companies are jumping up and being able to hold their own and getting the attention that they deserve because, I will
that's
say,
nice little knife.
it's a fantastic thing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So with an overall weight of 2.646 ounces, it would take about 4 of these to equal the weight of a palliated woodpecker.
Oh, I'd rather have a woodpecker pecking me than one of these things, though.
Well, I don't know. Those things can peck pretty damn hard.
See, but I can punch a bird. I don't think I can punch that knife without really cutting myself open.
This is true, yeah. Punching a bird would deter it. Punching this thing wouldn't deter it.
No.
I think this conversation has deteriorated.
Once again, sorry, PETA, for talking about punching birds, but it is in self-defense in this hypothetical. So.
Yep, it is.
Depending on what kind of woodpecker, that's a serious crime.
Mhm.
Really? Even if all
I'm
right.
sure there's endangered woodpeckers out there.
Yeah, there's different species, so
Can you
there's the potential.
Can you not kill an animal under self-defense if it's endangered?
I don't know.
How endangered?
Well,
At what level of self-defense can you justify it and actually justify the killing of it, or would you have been
If we're talking
able to
black
deter
rhino,
it?
if we're talking black rhinos, you just have to sit there and die. Like it's,
Yeah. Or pandas, man, you better just let those things maul you.
ugh, I don't like that.
So now that this has segued way off, so if you were to take the weight of those same 4 knives and using the same 4 knives, stretch them out over a length, they would equal just under the length of the world record's longest cattail belonging to Cygnus Regulus Powers.
That was awesome.
like a physical
Oh my
cat's
God.
tail.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
It was a Maine Coon, and yeah, its name was Cygnus Regulus Maximus, or Powers at the end there. I'm thinking Max Powers in my head as well.
Max Powers.
Oh,
Yeah, as you might have noticed as I was playing with it there, it does have a few different stop points there.
A 3-point half stop system.
Yeah.
which is super cool. I
Mhm.
think I personally really like that as far as a safety element.
Yes. Yeah, me too. And I've been joking around that instead of it having the walk and talk of a slip joint, it's going for a jog.
It has a jog to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of ratchety, and I was saying earlier, kind of like the Navaja sort of
The
design.
Spyderco.
Yeah.
Also, especially with a non-locking blade, really, really nice that you don't have to worry about it closing on your hand. Like, the chances of that engaging all 4 points and closing, you've got to
Yeah.
have a lot of pressure going down
Yeah.
on the point of this knife. So
Mhm.
even as a non-locking blade, it's quite secure in
Mhm.
hand, and yeah, you can use it pretty confidently for sure.
And not exactly a diminutive. It's not a very small knife, but it should be legal in a lot of places, both because of the shorter blade length and the fact that it doesn't lock.
Hmm. Yeah, just under 3 inches for the total length, but just under for the actual cutting edge.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I was looking in millimeters and trying to do conversions, but we've got this handy ZT mat here.
Yeah.
We might as well use it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and for me, again, it's right up my alley of the Dennis likes boring because that's one of the reasons that attracted me as well. It's beautiful in its simplicity.
Hmm.
So,
One thing that I have heard as far as like kind of a negative comment, or at least a constructive criticism comment, was people saying they would have preferred to have seen contoured handles, something where they're rounded. For me personally, I actually like that this is flat, just because if you are going to be bearing down on some work, that flat contact is going to help anchor it in place. It's not
Yeah.
going to rotate on you as easily.
Hmm.
and I think on their fixed blades, much more so, I would encourage that more. But as soon as you start rounding that, you're going to start to feel it in the pocket.
That's yeah.
And again, with the flat slabs, this thing disappears in the pocket. Nigel can attest, in fact. Yeah.
Yeah, like this is another one of those like the Akuchi that, despite the size of my hands, even trying to get stuff in and out of my pockets, I don't notice this.
And I think if you tried to round the scales on the folding versions of these, you would definitely start to notice it.
Yeah, it would definitely change the pocket ergos.
And speaking of pocket ergos, you'll also notice that the clip is on the appropriate side, for me at least.
Yeah.
But they do give you the option with a steel plate, conveniently enough, as a filler spot to make it left-handed, which I immediately did.
Yeah,
Such a nice little detail and so worth it.
absolutely.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, just so worth it for a company to do.
Yes. And with that as well, they also gave you the proper tools to be able to adjust pocket clips, body screws.
This guy is actually using the Allen keys instead of Torx screws. And this was actually last year's version, and we believe that this year's version, the change-up is to Torx instead of the Allen key.
But they do supply you the tool one way or the other. So if you're buying new, you should have the right tool for the job. So
Yes.
They do give you the IKEA Allen wrench to finish it. It's not the same Allen wrench. They're Bulgarians. They're not sharing. But yeah, and I don't actually know if that's the new change or not, but we do know that this is the 2018 model, so there was some slight variations with the 2019 model. Hypothetically, could be one of those. Yeah, for sure.
And now for the blade itself, mentioned it's S90V.
Giggity.
Yeah. And what's the hardness on that again?
6061.
Yeah, it is.
Nice.
Now, having said that, I believe his Instagram handle is jcoolg, who's been doing a lot of the heat treatment tests. Did test his at, I believe it was like a 59.8 or a 59.2 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it was a hair under, but again,
That's acceptable.
Within reason.
within a batch.
Within half a degree, I think that's totally reasonable.
And if you're doing them in large batches enough to produce worldwide, because there is worldwide distribution on this, if you look on the social media, they've got Manly Europe, Manly USA, Manly Canada. They're they're established as a company for sure, which good for them.
Yeah.
I'll say right now, I actually spent 3 days in the backcountry with this knife. Other than my Cold Steel Trailmaster, which does a lot of my wood processing, every other cut that was made, whether it was on fishing line, whether it was on paracord, whether it was on food, was done with this knife. And I was amazed at the cutting performance on this thing.
Excellent.
Yeah, how thin is the stock that they give you?
Yeah, Manly actually sends out a little descriptor pamphlet for all the specifications of this little guy.
I don't exactly know behind the edge.
Oh, but the stock thickness, like at the spine, doesn't give you that.
2.8 millimeters.
So they start thin. And I'm going to tell you guys, right behind the edge on this thing is thinner than a lot of the hollow ground knives that have come across my collection over the last couple of years.
Definitely.
Like,
3 mils is tiny.
Yeah. 2.8
For-
is getting even smaller, and behind the edge is just ridiculous.
And they opt to put a 15-degree bevel on theirs, not a 20.
So they're leaning into the fact that this is just a slicey as hell
That they are.
knife. Like it's
Now, something I am super curious about is if they do the same geometry with their 1227 Sandvik versions, whether it's still a 15 or if they do put it to a 20 because of blade stability, things like that. I'm super curious about that, and I haven't thought about it up until we're having this conversation right now. But
That is something to be curious about.
if they adapt for the steel choices that they have, because this has been a really smart, clever company that these guys have come up with, and I'd like to see that. But
That would be cool.
maybe we can just blurb in a yay or nay if we can, if we see it on their
do some
website.
homework.
Yeah.
And if not, I mean, I'm sure somebody who owns one of the 12C could always chime in.
I think Super Steel Steve, Chef Kalari, actually has done a review on the 1227, so there might be info on his video when he did this one as well. But overall, just absolutely phenomenal. I've been really happy with it. Ergos, I think everyone can agree, instead of overdoing it with geometry, again, the simplicity makes every hand size probably really like this.
Yeah, it's nice and neutral. It's right at that spot that it's just on the edge of being uncomfortable for my hands, but it's still definitely usable and not going to be uncomfortable.
I was going to say, and for sure that means it's going to be okay for the vast majority of people out there.
Yes. Yeah.
Before I forget, one of the main kickers for this thing is they'd managed to deliver such a kick-ass product at a very reasonable price.
Yeah, we got to dabble on price point. I believe their MSRP coming out of the box originally was $92 American.
That's just ridiculous.
Not just for the materials, but for the degree of precision in the execution.
Phenomenal.
Bravo, holy crap.
And I mean, I do have an example of some similar materials. You've got a G10 handle, you've got an ambidextrous pocket clip, you've got a high performance blade.
Yeah, you do have steel liners. These ones are nested liners inside of it, so a little bit more machining work to get them recessed.
For sure. Access lock compared to, but a 3-stage slip joint, so the precision even on that is pretty cool. Easily $100 less, if not more, type of thing on the American market. So, this guy's price point, if you're somewhat intrigued, you will not be disappointed either in the 1227 or the S90. I say splurge for S90 because it's the best price point you're ever going to find for an S90V blade.
It sure is.
Absolutely insane.
And I hope they can continue that business model because, again, it just turned out into such an excellent little piece.
That it did. Jumping into some of the negatives that we have about this guy, and pretty much the only negatives that any of us could come up with are really, really nitpicky fit and finish sort of things. My one personally is aesthetically, I don't like that sort of a hard shoulder. And then the other one that did it for me was how very sharp that they left the spine edges there.
Jesus.
And it would have been nice to do a little bit of a chamfering on them. But other than that,
about my fire steels.
other than that, it's just, it's such a nice little knife.
I didn't try to fire steel this thing.
Fair enough.
I've never
But-
tried with S90. I don't know how
No.
that sparks.
Anyway, yeah.
For me, yeah, just more bitchiness about small things. One thing, and this was something I noticed when I first picked it up, but there's a bit of a depression here. The spine of the knife actually dips down so that you can feel a recess on.
We'll see if we can get a close-up shot of it just
Yeah.
to show you that
Mhm.
it's not
In a picture.
100%.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not quite there, but I mean, you could very easily file down the G10 if it bothered you that much. Me personally, I don't know that I'd even bother. It's just for 100, well, what amounts to roughly like 100 American for it. It's like, yeah, I would prefer to see it more flush. But even that,
At that price point, that's one of those things that I'm willing to overlook.
Yeah.
to a degree.
Yeah.
Well, for that steel and stuff, like,
Well, yeah, knowing the cost of the material for sure.
Yeah.
But if you
the
could,
reason you're getting it at this price point is you might have some of those fit and finish. You're never going to get the S90 at this price point
yeah,
and go, there's nothing else I can bitch about. It's not going to happen.
for sure.
It's-
But that being said,
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
like it if they matched properly.
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I agree that it would be nice if they were flush. It would make it that much nicer for the price point.
Yeah.
But
The only other thing, before I forget, is one of the liners here, and I'll see if I can get a close-up picture. Not really a nice way to say it, but it looks pretty chewed up. I'm not sure whether that was something that was just missed on the finishing stage, or if there was something that happened when that particular liner was being made. But it's, one, nothing that I can feel with my hand as I'm using the knife, and two, unless I disassemble it, I'm never really going to see it. So,
and if you did choose to disassemble it, it would be a super easy fix to just sand and smooth that out.
And yeah, like how I mentioned earlier, that the liners are recessed into the G10. So the fact that one of the liners has a little bit of a chewy edge, it's tucked in and recessed within the liner. So it's really, like I mentioned, just us trying to find things to be nitpicky about.
Yeah, these are the smallest of details that.
I still want one of these.
Oh hell yeah!
Oh yeah. And I'm quite biased because I have used this knife practically, but because I have, I know that none of these things affect performance in any way,
No.
and this knife is just absolutely phenomenal. I have one nitpick of my own. And it is actually the pocket clip itself. Yes, it is ambidextrous, and I love that it's still tip up. But it is a single screw construction. And when you're doing that, you better do that with some serious precision. Because if you don't, you can get a serious wiggle to that knife. And it doesn't have a serious wiggle, but there is definitely some shifting going on. The G10's not perfectly machined. I've got other single screw pocket clips, Lion Steel, things like that, and they're bang on when you tighten them up because the precision is there. You're also paying for that precision as well.
Sabenzas are in the same sort of realm where
Single screw
single
construction,
screw, but perfectly machined, right?
just like locked down tight instead of having some play on it.
But-
Now, one of the cool things I like as well, they gave you the steel plate to put in
It's
on
a
the
very
other
nice
side.
touch.
So even though it is a single screw, they're complimenting again with price point that it's super minor things.
And I think that kind of wraps up how we feel about that knife. I mean,
Well, the one other thing is Allen keys rather than Torx, and I don't know if that was the trade-off for 2019 compared to 2018. I can't verify that 100%, but it would like to see some universal implements in the knife world, such as Torx rather than Allens. I know Allens are a little easier to strip if you're overdoing things, but
Yeah.
nitpicky.
Yeah.
and that's what it comes down to. It's just
Yeah.
nitpicks.
And as far as like the consistency within the knife world, I definitely agree with that. That like that's the standard that's being done is it's Torx screws for the knife world. But as far as getting out into the mass market and what sorts of tools the general populace has that aren't knife people,
Yeah.
pretty much everyone has Allen keys. It seems that unless you're a knife guy, you're probably not going to have Torx screws or Torx.
Not the micro ones
Yeah,
that we're
yeah.
dealing with.
No, knives, guns, and computers. They all three of those sort of hobbies and areas of interest use Torx, but don't encounter them too often elsewhere.
So yeah, as far as being a knife guy, yeah, I would agree that the Allen key compared to a Torx is a negative. But as far as trying to market your company to a general populace and get yourself out there, I don't know if it's a negative or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. On to the scoring of this guy. As you could have probably been able to tell throughout the rest of the video, we are all definitely a fan of this guy, and with that, I personally gave it a B plus at a 84.
Just couldn't give it that one extra point.
Not quite, no, but yeah, it's really, really great knife. As far as the objective side of it, the lowest score I gave was an 8 for the lockup and actuation. It's nothing wrong with it, but as far as slip joints go, it does have a little bit of a roll to it. It's not completely crisp. So yeah, a little bit docked marks for that. And in the personal side of it, it was the enthusiasm for it wasn't really on my radar until Dennis actually picked one up and got to play with it and stuff like that. So it's definitely up there, but at a 7.
Fair enough. Yeah, for me, this was kind of a knife that had been slowly building in the background, and when Dennis finally got it in hand, like, wow, okay, this is pretty cool. I ended up giving it an A with a 90 for a score.
Nice.
Highlights cost for materials and cutting ability. Like, this thing has a laser scalpel edge, and
Yeah, it
it
does.
has the geometry to support it. Like, that's how S90V should be done.
Yep.
Super scalpel thin and just very
And a
thinly ground.
nice Rockwell as well.
Oh yeah. Speaking of hardness,
Yeah.
that should definitely be something in the forefront of your mind when you're looking at this. Like, it's a precision cutting tool, and they give it very nice handles that suit the purpose. Low point for me was honestly cost for fit and finish, but it's still a 7. And just because I'm a nitpicky bastard, it's more for stuff like that.
I gave them all grief about their 7s, by the way. We'll get into that in a second.
But again, for me, a 7 is still a relatively good score. It's just there were a few things missed that could have been caught. But as far as the design of the knife, the feel of it, and the performance, just bang on. My personal side of things was 9s across the board, except for enthusiasm, which is 10. Once I have a few other priorities squirreled away, that's going to be squirreled away in my pocket.
Understandable.
Maybe not Dennis's specifically, but I want one.
No, mine's not for sale. It won't be anytime soon.
Didn't think so.
So last but not least, I gave it a bump above Joe. It got a 91 for me. I've easily the highest score we've had. It is a good old solid A. Yeah, for sure. Easily the highest score I've had for me so far. As far as scoring knives review goes, I'm blown away by this thing. It's been on my radar for a couple months now. I know I showed it to both of you guys somewhere along the way through some catalogs and stuff, and then through social media it started to pop up. And there was some deals that were too good to be true on this thing, and had to jump on one. And then I was like, hey, let's go field test it. So I went into the backcountry mountains, lived that life for 3 days, cutting everything from feather sticking to paracord to food prep. And again, absolutely blown away on the performance of this thing. Even to the point where the person I was with, very not knife person, almost anti-knife person, but I get everyone to warm up about knives a little bit. I learn them good. That's for sure. They even commented on, wow, that's a nice knife. It cuts so cleanly. And I'm like, yeah, you bet it does.
I was struggling to make a cut through some rope here.
No, not at all. You can go all day. And again, I have not stropped. I haven't done anything. If we did a cut test right now, you can do circles and paper. It's absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, when you brought it to the shop that day and I was cutting through paper with it, I'm like, so you haven't done anything to this edge? Like, holy crap. Like, it was just sailing through paper.
I gave it 4 10s.
Nice.
Absolutely blown away. Yeah. So cost versus materials, find S90 for a better price. Like, just, you can't. There's no way. Cutting ability, like you dabbled on, Joe, you can't, like, out of the box, just absolutely phenomenal. Gives Cold Steel's pretty good edge a run for their money type of thing. Material choice, again, for me, S90, G10, awesome. Left-handed clip. I'm not scared of traditionals, have a half a dozen in my collection already type of thing, right? So And finally, enthusiasm. Before this came in, probably a 7 or an 8. I was pretty excited about it, but I didn't know until you got it in hand.
Yeah.
Got it in hand, got to use it, and that bumped to a 10 instantly. I'm in love with this knife right now.
I have to say, your recommendation is partly what brought my enthusiasm up to a 10 as well. It's like, holy crap.
I want to check out an EDC fixed blade from these guys because they got one called the Patriot, and I don't know what steel choices they have, but as impressed as I am with this thing, it makes me look at other things from Manly knives, for sure.
Yeah. And yeah, the enthusiasm category is pretty much the only thing that would be able to get bumped up in my personal score as far as what it is and stuff like that, and knowing how it performs and stuff like that. It's a nice one.
So yeah, having said everything, I have totally biased, but I think it's all the right way. This is the knife that you will be like, wow, as long as you're not one of those anti-locker guys.
Yeah.
And are against having anything with a non-locking blade, if you're willing to entertain the idea, this thing's going to rock your world. It really is.
That it will.
Keep in mind, S90 at plus 60 Rockwell. It's a cutting tool, not a screwdriver.
Yeah, especially with how thin it is. It's, as Joe mentioned earlier, a precision cutting tool.
And in the pamphlet that they give you, there's some very poorly translated guidelines on the fact that this is a cutting tool and not a pry bar or a screwdriver.
Yeah.
But for what it is, it's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, like you can see here between all our graphs that, this thing scored really nice. It's definitely highly recommended.
And actually, just to be a smartass, I miss Paul being here. I know. You never think I would say that, but I think Paul would have loved this knife too.
Probably, yeah, despite how boring and non-colored it is.
And
You can get different handle colors, though.
Fair enough.
He can digicam and Brit dye digicam handles on this thing all day.
That
Get the
weirded me out,
psychedelic vomit on it.
Why not? But I think this would be right up his alley, and I can't wait for him to play it once he gets back from deportation.
Yep.
So.
And on that note, we are not going to be bringing an episode to you next week. We are actually having to go vouch for Paul and sit in at a deportation hearing, and we'll see if he gets to be in the country still and help us out with this project in the future.
Or if he gets Das Boot.
Yeah.
I think that's where Morgan was already at right now. I think he had to go over there for some pre-trial something going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, next week.
A little bit of a hiatus for us, but we will be back in strength, at least the three of us, the week after that, and we'll see if Paul's still in the country or not.
Yeah, let's get some Canadian flags out and show them we're peaceful.
Yep. So that being said, that's all we have for this week. Nigel the Smith, signing off.
I am who I am. I'm Dennis Vipers.
I am the Iron Joe.
We will catch you again.